How many women all up would have been in this cell?
120. Walk in, I said, does anyone here speak English? One chick put her hand up, said, I do. And I'm like, oh, thank God for that. And she said, okay, I will work out where you're going to sleep. And I'm looking around thinking, what do you mean? There's nowhere. You literally could not see the wooden floor. So she said, everybody, okay, lay down on your side. She sort of told people to move and she said, okay, that's where you are. And I'm like, it was 22 centimetres. In that section I was in, there was 2,000 women, and at that stage there was 10 toilets in the yard. As soon as the cell doors get opened, it's a stampede. I said, what do you mean? And she said, you run as fast as you can to get to the tank area. I realised quite quickly that it was the right move not to be wearing anything, because people were grabbing onto the backs of people's pyjamas, pulling them away from the front of the trough so they could get in there. That blew my mind. There's a trustee there with a long metal rod. She's raised it and I can see she's going to bring it down across my wrist.
Yeah.
And I've yelled out, oi, when you're a foreigner in there, it's dead time. You have to not think rationally anymore. You can't, because you're in an irrational environment.
The I Catch Killers podcast was a fresh start for me, as I left policing behind and started a new life. Over the years, we've laughed together, cried, and shared some powerful moments. Welcome to I Catch Killers. Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with Holly Deane-Johns. In part 1, Holly told us about her upbringing that, strangely, she said it was normal. I don't think it was that normal, because we're talking about, as a teenager, helping the family run the escort agency. Being with mother, letting her have a taste of heroin at the age of 14, 15. So there's a couple of strange things there, Holly, when you say it's a normal upbringing.
Yeah.
And who am I? I'm not judging. I'm just saying it's not the typical upbringing. But all jokes aside, like your whole family was inflicted by an addiction to heroin, and I'm talking the siblings, parents, and people. Basically your whole family.
Yeah, apart from my dad. Well, my dad was a very heavy drinker, so I guess that was his addiction. But yeah, all of us at one time were heroin addicts, and each of us had been in jail.
Yeah, and when you see that path, you see the path that your life has taken, it doesn't come as a surprise that you end up in jail. And then when you're still carrying on your love affair with the drug heroin over in Thailand, it was probably only a matter of time before you got caught.
Yeah, looking back on it now, with a rational mind, yeah, for sure.
That's interesting you say with a rational mind, because we talked in part 1 that you were saying that you're not thinking clearly when you're addicted to heroin. That's your driving
That's
force.
your drive, yeah.
That's what you're there. I want to take us right into the prison, because I know a lot of people think, what is it like in a foreign prison? Now, in a prison in Thailand, the conditions aren't going to be good. They're not going to be conducive to an easy life. Take us right through that journey and how you changed and how you learned to cope in the prison, everything that you experienced.
Okay, so let's start off with night 1.
Yeah.
That was a spin out. So taken up to the first floor, where there's just a long corridor of cells. There's concrete up to about waist high, and then there's just bars. You can see into every single cell down the whole corridor. I'm standing outside the door to this cell. I'm looking in, looking for foreign faces. I don't see any, just Thai. And I'm thinking, oh my God, far out. Walk in. I said, does anyone here speak English? One chick put her hand up, said, I do. And I'm like, oh, thank God for that. Sat down with her. She spoke great English. She was what they call the Mai Hong, which is the mother of the room. She's in charge of every single thing that happens in there. So our money was in a form of coupons. So she's in charge of giving the money out. She's in charge of who sleeps where. She's in charge of everything that happens in there. So she sort of filled me in on what the routine was. And she said, okay, I will work out where you're going to sleep. And I'm looking around thinking, what do you mean? There's nowhere. You literally could not see the wooden floor. There
Right.
was that many women in there.
Just standing, laying, sitting on the floor? What?
At that stage, everyone was sitting down because the TV was on. So everyone was watching TV, but they had their blankets out and all that. So I'm thinking, where does she think she's going to put me? There's no space. So she got up and she counted each line of women. I think there was 5 rows. Whichever line had the least women, that's where I was going. So she said, everybody, okay, lay down on your side. She sort of told people to move, and she said, okay, that's where you are. And I'm like, that.
and you're indicating here about 30, 40 centimetres.
That's being generous.
Right, okay.
It was 22 centimetres.
So when you're saying lying on your side, you're literally lying on your side. Yep.
So that was my night 1 introduction.
And you're laying on the floor.
You're laying on the floor.
5 rows. How many women all up would have been in this cell?
In that one, I think there was about 120.
Okay.
It's just a cell. At the end is a small area with a toilet in the ground. That's it. And when you're using the toilet, everyone can see what's going on.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no privacy. I actually didn't use the toilet in the cell for a month because I was that embarrassed. I was that shy. I'm like, how can I go to the toilet in front of 120 people?
Yeah.
That was just unfathomable to me. But then after a month, I realised, hey,
this is life.
This is life now.
Yeah.
And you're going to be here for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Forget about your modesty. Forget about being embarrassed. Forget everything that you knew about yourself.
Yeah.
You have to change. And I made the decision then. I made the decision to live like a Thai. And that decision, I know, helped me get through that experience. I couldn't be me anymore.
Okay, that's an interesting. I understand the concept you're saying. If you were thinking like an Australian woman would in that environment, where's this, where's that, you're going to just create a bigger nightmare for yourself. So you just had to accept, okay, this is the environment. I'm going to become one of these people. They're surviving. I can do this. Just back on the bed situation. If you're laying that close, that tight, one person rolls over, you all roll over? Was that the...
That's what happened. So if one person turned in the line, the whole line would have to roll.
Crazy.
It was that hot in the cell. There was 2 ceiling fans, and they weren't the big fans.
Just little...
The little round ones.
Okay, so the old style fans you'd see on a kitchen bench, just circulating the air.
2 of those.
Yeah, okay.
It felt like it was 50 degrees in that cell. So when you're sleeping that close to people, you feel like your skin is melted into each other.
Yeah.
You're just stuck to each other. You're sweaty.
Yeah. And so you are like it's skin to skin virtually because you're so close. And you got on the floor, it's timber floor, and you got a mattress, not a mattress, a blanket, or what?
Some people couldn't afford to have a blanket. I bought a couple, which I would fold up to lay on. You know, if the person laying next to you, which did happen to me, she had her hair in a ponytail.
Yeah.
Her hair was in my face. So I kept like pushing her head to get it out of my face. And she was getting pissed off. I was getting pissed off. But what do you do?
Did you have to stand up for yourself in a situation like that?
Many times.
Yeah.
There was one time at showering. I'll explain the shower episode because that was quite eye-opening as well. So it was explained to me in the cell. She said, look, as soon as the cell doors get opened, it's a stampede. I said, what do you mean? And she said, you run as fast as you can to get to the tank area. Now, this tank area, it was like a large trough. You would stand around this trough with a small plastic bowl, which you would use to scoop the water and throw it over yourself. Now, in that section, you didn't have to shower with a pyjama top on. you could be naked from the waist up. So obviously I've been sweating all night. I'm very hot. I'm dirty. So I take my top off. I take my bra off to shower properly. I realised quite quickly that it was the right move not to be wearing anything, because people were grabbing onto the backs of people's pyjamas, pulling them away from the front of the trough so they could get in there to start taking water. That blew my mind. So there's a trustee prisoner at the front of the tank. She starts doing a countdown. When this countdown starts, you start taking water. Once it stops, get out. Right?
Each lot that's in front of the trough, like the count, and then you're out.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is if you haven't been pulled out already. So if there was a good trustee on, you'd get a slow count.
Yeah.
If there was an asshole on, you'd get a real quick countdown. That was showering. So once that tank of water was probably that high.
You're looking at a metre or so.
Yeah. So once that water runs out, they don't turn it back on. There's water. It's not like there's no water. They choose not to. So if you're unlucky enough to have not gotten in time, you don't get a shower.
Okay.
You wait until the afternoon. Then there's a second tank where, because a lot of people wash their own clothes. So there you can go to take water to wash your clothes, and you can take a bowl to brush your teeth. Now, I'm new here. I don't know really what's happening. I'm just sort of going with the flow, watching people, blah, blah, blah. So I've put my bowl in to get some water. There's a trustee there with a long metal rod. She's raised it, and I can see she's going to bring it down across my wrist.
Yeah.
And I've yelled out, "Oi!" And she stopped. I've went and got my friend. I said, "You need to come here and translate. You tell this woman, if she ever hits me with anything, I'll grab it off her and I'll hurt her a lot worse than what she can ever hurt me." I said, "You need to translate exactly what I've just said." And she did. Me and this woman actually became very good friends after that.
Right.
Which was very handy to me, because her being a trustee, she could get as much water she wanted. She had a certain area in the prison where nothing got stolen. So these trustees these were perks for them. They slept in a cell with less people, so they could sleep in a very big spot. They had certain areas where they could dry their clothes. So if I paid one of these people to wash for me, I knew my stuff wouldn't get stolen. So it's things like that you have to, okay, she can do this for me, she can do that for me. So that's how I sort of navigated things. I gravitated and made friends with people who would be beneficial to me. So they were getting something from me that they needed, which was money, and I was getting something from them that I needed, which was my clothes not to be stolen. Or if I needed more water after a shower, I could get it. So that's sort of how I went about establishing myself.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a sense, like the barrier to communication, because you don't speak Thai, or didn't at that point in time. It looks like you can't get walked over, because if it's same rules as the prisons here, if you get walked over to start with, you're going to be walked over for the whole time. The sleeping conditions, how long were you in that environment? Like if we're talking 120 women, one toilet, and you're sleeping virtually spooning each other, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. It's hard to remember specific timelines, but I was in that cell, I was in that cell for about 3 years. Over time, people might have got bail, so they've been released from that cell. So the number of people had gone down at some times. And I remember I did have a decent sleeping area at one stage because there were less people. But the spot that I had was directly underneath the TV in the cell. And these weren't modern TVs. These were the big, old-style ones. So this is your mentality, right? And even thinking about it now, it's so nuts that I even had to consider this. But because I knew what it was like in there, I mean, I'd seen ceiling fans drop from the ceiling onto people's heads.
Yeah.
So I knew that things weren't made well. I knew I knew that potentially that TV could drop off the wall. But my reasoning was, okay, that could happen and I might break my legs. But if it doesn't happen, I've got a great sleeping spot.
Okay, so that's a trade-off.
That's a trade-off. And even just saying out loud, that's insane. That's a crazy way to think. It is, that's nuts. Who thinks like that? But that's how you have to think.
Yeah.
You have to not think rationally anymore. You can't, because you're in an irrational environment.
What about your health, like the food and
I had diarrhea for the first 6 months that I was in there.
Right.
The food was that spicy. I couldn't tolerate it. So yeah, about 6 months before my stomach was used to it, and I actually enjoy spicy food now.
Yeah.
But that was a real problem for me, because in that section I was in, there was 2,000 women, and at that stage there was 10 toilets in the yard.
One toilet for 200.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
So having diarrhea, that was a real issue for me, because if I had to get to the toilet quick, and everyone knows what it's like to have a stomach problem, then you're going to shit yourself.
Yeah.
I was lucky in the sense that the boss in the room of mine, she knew the lady who oversaw this line to go to the toilet. So I'd always get to the front, go.
Yeah.
Again, it's who you know.
You seem to, and from reading your book, you seem to have built a real sort of community in there. Like, I'm trying to get a sense of how you occupy your day. Like, okay, sleeping, there's the washing, showering, wash your clothes. How is the rest of the day filled?
In that first section that I went into, it's a very small section, so there's not much work. Because there's not much work, I'd say probably 3/4 of the women were jobless. That meant there was a massive tent-like area in the yard, and that's where you sat all day.
Yeah.
There was nothing else to do.
So you're sitting, are you finding people that you can talk to, or?
Yeah, in that section there was probably about 6 of us that were foreigners.
Yep. Where were these people from?
Russia, Indonesia, Philippines. So obviously we spoke to each other because we couldn't speak to many other people. Yeah, I was unemployed for a long time there because there just was no work.
So what goes through your mind at this point in time? Like, is it survive each day?
Yeah.
Is that one step at a time?
Yeah.
If I get through the day, today's a good day.
Yeah.
Did you get involved in fights? Did you have any physical
Yeah, I had a couple.
Yeah. What were they over? Talk us through those.
Do you know what? The first fight I had, I don't even know what it was about.
Yeah.
That's how crazy it is. And this was a friend of mine. Yeah, she just got up and hit me, and I got up and it was on. One screw saw it, and it was lucky that it was the one who did see it. She pulled us aside and said, "What's going on?" "No, nothing's going on." "Well, is it all good now?" Like, yeah, we're fine, Okay, go. So that was that. Another time I got into a fight was with my best friend.
What was her name?
Gigi.
Yeah.
Again, I can't even remember now what the fight was about, but it was over something really trivial. And the thing is, yeah, it's crazy to get into a punch-up with your friend, but you're that stressed out on a daily basis. You're constantly in survival mode. you're just so under pressure all the time. Every day is like you're in a pressure cooker situation.
So the littlest thing.
The littlest thing. So that happened. I saw a girl kick Gigi, the girl I'm just talking about, in the stomach once, and I just saw red, and I just started laying into her.
Yeah.
And look, and that's not me. I don't like confrontation. If I can avoid it, obviously I avoid it. But again, you have to adapt to the situation you're in, because if you don't, you're going to get walked on, and that's not going to happen to me. So
you have to stand up for yourself.
You have to.
Yeah. Was there consequences from the fights? Did you get separated or punished or what?
So that fight I had with the girl kicking my friend, it's hard to explain to people. So everybody has a building which you stay in. So if your cell is in that building, you work in that building. Outsiders aren't allowed to come in.
Right.
I was an outsider to this building.
Yep.
But the screw in charge never said anything to me because I never caused trouble in there. I always helped with work if there was work. I wasn't just there as a troublemaker. I was actually helping there. But she saw me fighting this chick.
Yeah.
There was two of them that saw me. So after it happened, I just went back down and sat down, and I thought, maybe they're going to turn a blind eye. Then they called me up and said, look, we've known that you've been coming in here for years, and we've never said anything to you because you've never been a problem, but I can't overlook that. You have to leave. So I was never allowed back into that building again. So that was a major issue for us because everything we did in there. So you have what's called a house. This is an area of space which you sit on blue plastic that you can buy from the shop there.
Tarpaulin type.
Like a tarpaulin. That's your area.
And you call that your house?
That's your house. Everyone has a house.
Out in the yard.
Out in the yard.
Yeah.
So, for me getting kicked out of that building, I just lost my house. So I said to the two women I was living with, my friend G and my other friend Peni, I said, look, this is a major hassle now. You stay here in your building, I'll go, and I'll just find somewhere else to be. And they said, no, if you go, we go. So that's what it's like. Once you're a family and you're very close with people, that's your people.
Do you think that kept your humanity in there, kept you sane, having that friendship and connection with, you're calling them your family?
Yeah.
Your crew.
100%. Because everything in a situation like that is about making your life as easy as it can be, and everyone brings something to the table. We all have a skill, or do you know what I mean? We all have something we all need. So that's what you sort of do. You gravitate and make friendships around making life that little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. When you made the decision when you were in prison that you're not going to do drugs anymore, and that was about 10 months into your time in prison.
Yeah.
What brought that on?
I'm sure you've heard people say, I had a real light bulb moment. That's really what happened.
Yeah.
I woke up one morning, gone out into the yard. I'm sitting on the ground. I'm just sitting there just looking around at the people, at what's going on around me. And I just started thinking, wow, Holly, look where you are.
As in, how the hell did I end up here?
Yeah. Look where you are. Look what you've done to yourself. You've ruined your life. And that moment for me was the light came on. And I was like, far out. Look where I'm going to be for the next 20, 30 years. Who knows? Look where I am. Look what I've done to my family. Look what I've done to my friends. But look what I've done to me. And I made the decision right there and in that moment, I will never, ever touch drugs ever again. Ever.
And did you keep that commitment to yourself?
Sure did, yeah.
Was it hard?
No.
It was just like the switch on.
Switch.
Yep.
And like I've said to you earlier, I've always been very strong-willed. I've always had a very sharp mind. If I make a decision to do something, I do it. I don't back down from a decision. Once it's made, it's made. So because I am like that, that's why it was easy.
Okay. And was it easier doing time when you were clean, or because you said it earlier on that the drugs were part of your escapism when you're in there? So when you haven't got the drugs to hide behind, how did your time change for you?
I read a lot.
Yep.
I escaped in books.
Okay.
A lot of the foreigners did. We were all big readers. It was funny because sometimes there wouldn't be many books. And for example, if I saw you with the book, I'd be like, as soon as you finish, can I have it? But then, I was in line next, and it would be a fight over the book, not a physical fight.
Yeah, I understand.
Oh, far out, I've got to wait. That was an escape. We would read a book to go somewhere else. At one stage, we were allowed to have Walkmans brought in. That, for me, amazing. I love music.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have a book, I'd have music. If I didn't have batteries, I'd have books. So, yeah, those two things for all of us foreigners, that was great. But then our Walkmans were taken because the men were found to be making mobile phones out of them. So that was taken. The TV in the cells are turned on for about 2.5 hours a night. Thai soap operas, stuff like that. News would come on, but we were only allowed to watch news on the Royal Family. If anything else came on, the TVs were switched off.
Yeah.
I started watching Thai soapies.
When did you picked up the language?
Yeah, look, it did take a long time. Thai is a very hard language to learn, well, it was for me. I could very early on understand things, but I couldn't verbalise them. Years in, I could communicate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, you always had the goal to get your sentence, prison transferred back to an Australian prison. What was the process that you had to go through for that?
It wasn't a big process at all. There were certain forms to be filled out. Once they were filled out, they got sent back to Australia. To be determined whether it was a yes or a no. I never ever imagined it would be a no. I just automatically thought I would be getting a yes. Come home, come back.
We want you back here.
Yeah, and that wasn't the case.
It took you 7 years.
7.5.
7. Oh, you corrected me before.
Don't forget that half.
Okay, it's only 6 months. You were correcting me before we started.
Oh, mate, that 6 months felt like a year.
Yeah, right. 7 years, 6 months, 22 hours, 10 seconds. Yeah, okay, I get it. Okay, before we take you back to Australia, what was the worst moment you had? What was your lowest point in the 7 years that you spent in prison?
Being knocked back to go home.
Right.
That was the most devastating thing. Oh, actually, no, not the most devastating thing. The most devastating two things were getting told my father had died of a heart attack and getting knocked back to transfer back home.
How was it broken to you that your father had died?
2 people from the embassy came to visit me late in the afternoon, and I knew something was wrong because getting told to go to the visit area then, that only means bad news.
Yeah. That would have been hard.
Oh, it was horrible. Devastating.
There's another part to that too, isn't there? That he wrote you a letter the day that you were arrested that you put in the glove box, and you didn't open it up until years later. And he was saying, "Get out of Thailand. I've got a bad feeling about it." Yeah,
that's exactly, what it said. I don't have a good feeling about you being there. Come home.
It's almost like a voice from the grave, isn't it?
Yeah.
Reading that.
But as I've said to other people, even if I did read that letter, I wouldn't have gone.
Yeah. You're hooked on the gear.
Yeah.
Okay, so packing up, you finally got the transfer to come through. What was the process there? Like, they don't just say, okay, get out of here and make sure you report there. Who escorted you back, and what were the processes?
Yeah, so I was told that 2 screws from Australia would fly to Thailand to get me.
Yep.
They would escort me home. In the few months leading up to that, obviously I had to have clothes brought in, shoes, all that type of thing, which was good because I saw a lot of people walk out of the jail in their pyjamas. They didn't have clothes.
Yep.
So yeah, the process wasn't a big complicated one. I got the okay. Things just had to be put into motion. The day that I left was really bizarre. All the very high-ranking prison officers all came to work that day. Can't remember how many there was. It was probably like 30 or 40 of them.
Yeah.
All at the main area where the nice boardroom is and all that type of thing. So they wanted a photo.
That is bizarre.
Really weird. With me, the 2 prison officers escorting me home, and all of them. I was like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just happy to be leaving, so I was like, yeah, cool, all right, let's have this photo. Have the photo. Once I get developed, we'll send one over to you.
What?
I said, don't bother. I said, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Oh, you sure? I said, yeah, I'm sure. Don't send it. So, yeah, that was that. Yeah.
So you're taken back escorted back with corrective services from WA and bringing you back. What was it like getting out of the prison and just being on a plane and being, for a moment, a free, normal person?
No, well, first, after that, I was taken to the immigration centre where I would be escorted to the airport that night. So this happened in the morning, stayed in the immigration cells till about, I think it was about 10 at night. I thought I was going to get into a fight there with one of the women in the cell. I found out later that she had been there for a long time. She'd set up a little shop in the cell. She knew all the cops there. They'd go and buy stuff for her.
And she wanted you to pay her for cleaning the
yeah.
cell. Yeah, put a bounce on you.
Yeah, I've walked in and she said, I want such and such amount of money. For what? Oh, the cleaning of the cell. And I said, well, I don't have any money. I said, the cops have my money. And I said, even if I did have money, I wouldn't be paying you.
Yeah.
So piss off. And she went back to her corner, eyeballing me all day, and I thought, oh my God.
Have you toughened up to things at this stage like that? Like a timid person that'd be confronting, you've gone into someone else's environment. The way you're saying this, well, stuff like no one's standing over me. Is that how you change? Is that how you change to survive in the prison? Yeah,
because why would I let anyone stand over me?
Yeah.
For what? I would never allow that to happen. But that's the thing, you have to let people know straight off the bat, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to cop from you, and this is what I'm not going to cop.
Yeah.
Once people know the boundary, everyone knows what's going on.
Okay.
That's why I let people know from the get-go.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. So you're at the immigration centre, and then you're taken to the airport?
Yeah. That was great. Once got to the airport, I sat in an office for hours. That was really boring. There was nothing to do. There was no books to read. There was no just sat there.
Yeah.
The boss from the embassy came in that night. I had to sign a piece of paper which was acknowledging the amount of money I'd received from the Australian government over the 7.5 years I was there. I had to sign that, and that was pretty much that.
Yep.
I was so hungry, I hadn't eaten anything. I'd had breakfast that morning at the jail. I'd had a bun to eat at the immigration. I was starving. This was like 11 o'clock at night. Another consular official came. I'd known her for a few years by this time. The first thing she asked me was, are you hungry?
Yeah.
I said, mate, I'm starving. I said, here's some money. She said, put your money away. I'll go and get you some food. Beautiful.
Yeah.
You know.
Make a difference.
Yeah. You know, I said, I've got to go to the toilet. So she had to take me to the toilet.
Yeah.
And she said, wow, how weird is it? You've been able to close the door. And I said, yeah, it's weird.
It's funny, the things you become used to. So you're on the plane. Did it feel good taking off?
Yeah. I had the screws either side of me. He was reading a book. Oh, God. I felt so sorry for her. I just talked her ear off.
Oh, what's going on?
Hours,
what's happening?
Look, it was just great to be able to talk to another person again, She was a senior officer, so she was able to tell me, everything that would be happening and all that. And, it was good.
Okay. How did you find it coming back into the Australian prison system? And how would you compare the both?
Night and day.
Okay.
It was great to be back. I mean, I could use a telephone.
Yeah.
I could ring anybody. I could watch TV, whatever I wanted. I could shower whenever I wanted. Hot water. Oh, my God. Feeling hot water on my skin for that first time was like...
Because you wouldn't have felt that for
never.
7 years?
No.
Yeah. 7 years, 6 months, 22 hours.
That's it, yes.
Okay. Got it right this time.
Sleeping on a mattress.
How did that feel? Because you get the
That was strange.
Yeah.
The section that I was put into when I first came back was called the crisis care unit. I was like, why am I going into the crisis care unit? I want to go into main population.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you have to stay in here for 2 weeks. I said, why? I'm not a vulnerable person. Oh, no, we want to, see how you go, getting back onto a Western diet and all that. I think that was all bullshit.
Yeah.
I think they thought I was gone in the head, or I don't know. Anyway, they said, well, this is how it is, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. Sleeping on a bed, that was really weird. I got vertigo for quite a while.
Yeah.
The beds in that section were probably that high off the ground. A pillow, that was really strange. A lot of the nights I didn't sleep with one. Just getting used to the little things, like I could wear thongs inside. Over there, walking anywhere, you couldn't wear shoes.
Yeah. In
the buildings. Just little things like that.
Did you, you leaving Thailand, understanding more of the culture, like in that type of environment?
Oh, yeah.
So, different cultures, they think a different way. It's not just, it's not just in the language, the way they approach life. You learnt stuff about the Thai culture?
Yeah, so it's mostly a Buddhist culture, which I loved. I thought it was amazing, like just the differences in certain things they did and their rituals and stuff like that. I was living with my two best friends who were Thai, and they were very much Buddhist, very, very into the religion and that. So there would be times, maybe once or twice a year when they would do a thing called ginjai. And that's just eating vegetables and fruit. There's no meat, there's no dairy, there's no nothing. They would do these things for a week, sometimes 2. So I would do it with them. And they would be like, no, you don't have to do it with us. You're not a Buddhist and this is our thing. Like, you eat what you got to eat. And I said, no, I don't feel right about it. I don't want to be sitting here eating all this in front of you. I said, no, we'll do it together. So, I very much became, as I said earlier, a Thai. In the early days, I got my hair cut shorter and I got it dyed dark brown.
So you didn't stand out.
So I didn't stand out because that enabled me to be able to go into places where the screws wouldn't think, what's she doing there? Why is she going there? So, I had to think of everything very, very early on to help me.
To get through.
Yeah.
When you're back in the Australian prison, you would have been a curiosity item. I'm sure everyone would have wanted to. What was it like? And you must have got sick of repeating the story.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew that was going to happen, but I just thought, you know what? If I was on the other side looking at somebody that's just come back, mate, I'd want to know
I'd
as
be
well.
asking the same thing.
I'd want to sit down with you for 2 hours and just, ask you everything. So I got it. I understood it.
How long did you serve back in WA prisons?
5 years.
Another 5 years.
Yeah.
So that what do we got? 17 years or so, all up.
Yep.
In prison. Do you look back and think they're wasted years? How do you look back at your life now?
Oh, so wasted. Especially the time in Thailand, because, you know, if you're Thai, you can study. You can actually learn stuff and get out and use it. When you're a foreigner in there, it's dead time. There's absolutely nothing you're getting out with that's a benefit to your future. That's why I not only I wanted to get back to Australia, but I wanted the opportunities that the jail there would give me. Everything's given to you in Australia. You don't... anything you want, anything you need, anything you want to learn, it's all there.
How did you use your time in the 5 years?
I did first aid courses. I did community services certificates. I got a diploma in youth work. Like, I did everything that would enable me to use for my future. Like, I knew very early on that what I wanted to do when I got out was to help people.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that person to motivate people, to let them know that, you know what, you might think you're at your lowest point now and you can't get out of this hole, but you can. I was once you.
Yeah.
Look at me now.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you know, I've said this often to people. If I was at high school, for example, and somebody like me came in and gave a talk to the kids, wow, that would have been amazing. Like, what an eye-opener to hear this kind of thing. Not only back then, but now. I mean, look how much drugs are now, you know, so much worse than they were back in my day. Like, this is a huge message that you got to get out there. And I'm that person to do it. I'm that right person.
Have you been having the platform to do that? Have you been able to do that?
I've just started to, yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I went into, I spoke to people that were, drug addicts and alcoholics. That was my first gig that I had. Talking to them about my stories, my struggles, my depression, my PTSD, my childhood, you know, just giving them the whole story of what's happened to me and what I've gone through. Mate, they were blown away. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that I'd gone from where I once was to what I am now. And, you know, afterwards they were just like, thank you for coming here. Like, I have hope now that I can actually do something with my life.
Do you think that is trying to give back a little bit?
Oh, 100%.
Because
yeah.
the person I'm seeing sitting opposite me now, I don't think you'd really like the person that you were that led you to being locked up and dealing in drugs and all the dramas and trauma that happens there. So is that in your way trying to give something back?
100%. 100%. Yeah. Look, if I can give back to people and give goodness to people and hope and, you know, all that type of thing, that's everything for me. You know, this is my calling, Gary.
Yeah.
This is what I'm meant to be doing. I believe that, yeah, you know, I've had a shit time, but, you know, I've done a lot to myself as well. I've always admitted my guilt, my wrongdoings. I've never denied anything. But, you know, I believe that the things I've gone through and the struggles I've had, maybe I'm meant to have had them. Because look at me now. Look who I am now.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You look back at all the low points, high points, everything in your life that makes you the person you are now.
100%.
Yeah. Stephen, you got to the great romance was rekindled after you got out of prison, and you got to spend some time with Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd Stephen and I had been together since I was 16.
Yeah.
I knew straight away that I would be with this guy forever. About a year and a half ago, he was diagnosed with terminal esophagus cancer, which was, needless to say, a huge, huge punch in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much from that first day of finding out, we knew that it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
He went through chemo, radiation. He exhausted every single opportunity that was available to him. When we first were told that he had cancer and it was terminal, I quickly went to see our doctor to find out whether euthanasia was legal in Western Australia, and he told me that it was. It had been legal at that stage for about 3 years. Hearing that was a sense of relief, in a sense, because nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to be in pain. Nobody wants to be here if they're not here anymore. So Stephen went through the process of getting approved for euthanasia. It was quite a long process, because they have to make sure that you understand what you're actually signing up for. Stephen went to the gym all the time. He was, very active, all that type of thing. And he said to me once, when I can no longer go to the gym, that's when I know that.
Yeah, fair call.
Yeah, and that's what happened. They told us that when Stephen started to get sick, it would happen very, very quickly, and it did. He went from being, like you and I, totally okay, to hardly being able to walk. That happened in a week and a half.
Yeah.
So it happened very, very fast. So, knowing the day and the time that you're going to check out, that was a really hard thing to deal with.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm in favour of assisted euthanasia, because I've seen people die and they want to die, but they're scared to die and they can't die. But I can, in the same regards, as much as I'm in favour of it, I can see how difficult it would be. Okay, you got 5 days left, 4 days left.
And that's what it was.
Yeah.
The actual day itself, I thought I'd been through some heavy shit, but that day doesn't compare to anything else in my life. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, devastating to lose your best friend, the love of your life.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Well, it sounds like it's a beautiful romance that you two can stay together from childhood through to this and everything in between. So you got those memories. But I can imagine how difficult it'd be for you. So is life looking good for you at the moment?
It is. Yeah. Look, just published my book in Feb.
Okay, I asked this. Where do you get the book?
So it's available in quite a lot of places. So on my website, Amazon, a lot of other bookstores online, audio book. There's an audio book, Kindle. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and we talked about the audio book. That's you actually narrating the audio book. So that
yeah,
good on you. That's a big task in itself.
It was.
Well, look, I on I Catch Killers, we get all sorts of people that come in and all different stories, and that I like stories where people turn their lives around. I like stories where people have hit rock bottom. I'm not enjoying that they've hit rock bottom, but showing that you can turn your life around no matter how low you've gone. And I think your story certainly encapsulates that doesn't matter where you are, you can turn it around.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all the best for the future.
Thank you.
We'll wrap it up here, but I've really enjoyed the chat, and thanks for making time to come and see us, because I know you're busy at the moment, and good luck with your future.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Cheers. I'm always amazed at the type of stories people have that come on I Catch Killers, and this is just another one. Surviving 7 years in a Thai prison. Now, I can't have sympathy for Holly Deane-Johns, and I don't think she'd want sympathy, because she was involved in the drug trade, and that's the consequences. But I am impressed with the way that she's turned her life around. I think it's quite inspirational that someone can hit such a low point and then make something of themselves and just survive. And we've got to understand, Holly is a victim of the drugs as much as the other person, because she was introduced to the drugs at a very early age from her mother. A very interesting story from Holly Deane-Johns.